read the standard letter. So we're going to call the meeting to order at 7:01 p.m. December 21st, 2020. As chair of the Timberlane Regional School District Budget Committee Board, I find that due to the state of emergency declared by the governor as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, and in accordance with the governor's emergency order number 12 pursuant to executive order 2020-04, this public body is authorized to meet electronically. There is no physical location to observe and listen contemporaneously to this meeting, which was authorized pursuant to the governor's emergency order. However, in accordance with the emergency order, I am confirming that we are providing public access to the meeting by audio and video utilizing a Zoom webinar platform where all members of the board have the ability to communicate contemporaneously during the meeting, and the public has access to contemporaneously listen and view by logging onto www.timberlane.net/ZoomBudCom. B, we have given notice to the public of the necessary information for accessing this meeting. This information has been provided along with the agenda and posted to the board's website at www.timberlane.net. C, we have provided a phone number for the public to alert this public body during the meeting if there are problems with access. That phone number is 603-382-6541, extension 3955. D, we will adjourn the meeting and reschedule if the public is unable to access the meeting. Additionally, all votes that are taken during this meeting shall be done by roll call vote. We will begin the meeting by taking a roll call attendance. When members state their presence, they must also state whether there is anyone in the room with them during this meeting, which is required under the right to know law. And with that, let's move on to the roll call attendance, please.
Christia Claire,
Hi, I'm here. I am alone in the room, but there are other people in my house.
Peter Belo,
Hi, I'm alone in the room and there's another person elsewhere in the house.
Brian Boyle,
I am here. I am alone in the room. There are other family members in the house.
Stephen Finnegan,
I am here. I'm alone in the room and there are other folks in the house.
Kathleen Gorman, Julie Hammond,
I'm here, but there are other people in the house.
Michael Muscola,
I am here and there are other people in the house.
Todd McCormick,
I am here alone in the room, but there are other people in my house.
Sue Sherman,
I'm here alone in my office, but there are other people in the house.
and Phil Sherwood.
I'm here alone in my room, and there are other family members in the house.
Okay, awesome.
Okay, great. If I could ask, Julie, could you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Sure. Can't see me. I gotta stand up. All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well done, Julie. Thank you. Okay. Next on our agenda, we're going to move to approval of the minutes from our last meeting. So Jeff sent these out. Jeff and Maria sent these out in the packet. I'll give you some time to look them over if you haven't looked them over already, and then I'll ask someone to make a motion to accept. All right. Can we have a motion?
We accept the minutes as written.
Second.
All right, any discussion? All right, let's take a roll call vote then.
Christia Claire,
Yes.
Peter Belo,
Yes,
Brian Boyle,
Yes.
Stephen Finnegan,
I abstain.
Julie Hammond,
Yes.
Michael Mascola,
I abstain.
Todd McCormick,
Yes.
Sue Sherman,
Yes.
and Phil Sherwood.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, great. Thank you. Moving on, we're going to go to correspondence. And do we have any correspondence, Jeff? I know of one.
We do have correspondence. Do you have it as well? Would you like to read it into the record?
I could do that.
Let me share it out for you here. There we are.
Okay. This is, I just lost my, hold on a second. This is addressed to the Budget Committee. We just got this a couple hours ago. December 21st, 2020, Dear Timberlane Regional Budget Committee members, as you review the school board staffing and program reductions tonight, I am reaching out to you for clarification. It is unclear to me and members of the Timberlane Support Staff Union if there are paraeducator positions included in these reductions. Public discussion on this matter would be greatly appreciated. The paraeducator vacancies currently listed on the TRSD website as of 12/21 include, and then it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 paraeducator positions, various locations: Sandown, TRMS, Sandown North, Danville, the middle school, various dates posted and dates available. As I am sure could be validated in data from the district, we quite regularly have open paraeducator positions. The turnaround of staffing paraeducator positions is something that should be analyzed. There are multiple reasons for openings. New or existing students requiring a one-on-one or shared paraeducator under their IEP, individualized education program, retirements, and staff taking other job opportunities within or outside of the district. It is no secret that retaining and attracting new paraeducators is difficult. This is a struggle nationwide. With unions organizing, such as our Timberlane Support Staff Union, great strides have been made to improve salaries and benefits and to better define the role and responsibilities of paraeducators. No doubt improvements are still needed. We are concerned over unspecified cuts. The direction our district is going is very unclear. Transparency is key. It is vital to know the impact of decisions made. Thank you. I'm going to butcher her last name, even though we've met many times. Lori Hirschenroder, TSSU president. Did I do good?
Well done. Thank you, Lori.
Thank you, Lori. All right. Do we have any other correspondence, Jeff?
I believe that is it.
Okay.
Video here for a second.
Okay. We've done this every week, but we do have a considerable audience tonight, and obviously for some important stuff we're going to be discussing. So delegates and individuals, we're allowing this and have been for the last 2 months, I think. The way it works is under your participants section at the bottom. Since the audience is all made up of attendees, you should have the ability to raise your hand. So if we do have any folks who are interested in addressing the Budget Committee, I would ask that you do that, and then we can allow you to speak. And I would just ask that you be courteous of other folks' time and try to keep it to around 3 minutes if you could, please. So
we do have a couple individuals who have raised their hands. Any particular order you want to go in?
no, not really, Dean. Just
Okay, I think Coral Hampy had raised her hand first, and then that's followed by Sarah Scanlon.
Okay.
I'll put Coral on.
okay, great.
Good evening. Coral Hampy, Danville, TTA president. Last Thursday, the school board voted to cut $2 million from the next budget. I fear that there was minimal public discussion about the impact that will have. Our kids are needier than ever with this pandemic, and they need all hands on deck to help them through. The list of potential areas to cut that Dr. Cochran presented was very vague in information. Who are elementary and middle school specialists? What if they are the one person who connects with a specific set of students? What if those students lose the social emotional support they need? I come before you tonight to ask 3 things. 1, are staff positions and programs really the only place the budget is, let's try that again. Are staff positions and programs really the only place in the budget to make these cuts? 2, Dr. Cochran justified his cut list by stating that we need to focus on core academics. So why are there no discussions about cutting the cost of extracurricular activities? Why did we immediately go for the academics? For instance, athletes could pay to play, or the middle school could offer only intramural sports instead of teams, so there's no busing cost. And 3, I ask you to please have a meaningful discussion on the impact these cuts will make. Please talk to the building admin about what cutting programs and teachers will do to the kids. Please think the decisions all the way through for the sake of the kids. Thank you. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays.
Thank you, Coral. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you,
And
Coral.
same to you. And next, Dean.
We have Sarah Scanlon.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. So my name is Sarah Scanlon. I'm from Danville, and I'm here tonight to speak to our experience of the FLES program, so the foreign language in elementary schools. Basically based on the discussion that was had at the school board last week and the impact it could have if the program was to be removed from opportunities for our children. So I have a daughter who's in 6th grade right now and a son in 9th grade. Excuse me. My daughter was fortunate enough to be in the first year of the FLES program at Danville Elementary. She started learning Spanish in kindergarten and now she's in the 6th grade. Throughout her time at Danville Elementary, she had daily Spanish lessons and absorbed this new language like a sponge. Learning Spanish has become as routine as a gym or math lesson. Now that she is in 6th grade, her reading, writing, and speaking skills are being reviewed and built upon. They are not starting from scratch. They have a wide-based knowledge of the culture and an understanding of the language. My son did not get the opportunity to learn a second language until he started middle school. He chose French as his language for 7th and 8th grade and then decided to try Spanish in high school. It always impresses us that he can ask our 11-year-old about a phrase or spelling or how to write a response, and just as quickly as she would answer for an English class, she can guide him in Spanish. She even includes how he should be pronouncing his words. I grew up in England where we all had to take 2 languages in addition to English. I studied German and French until age 13 when we could decide on just one. I believe that learning a language from such a young age is imperative to a well-rounded education. Elementary age kids soak up the information, improve their listening skills, and utilize problem-solving skills as they learn to read, write, and comprehend the language. Many studies back up this data. I wish my son had been able to have this opportunity and to be so natural and fluent in Spanish too. Our world is connected and we are globally connected, and starting a foreign language at an early age will benefit generations to come, especially when my daughter told me that 47% of the USA speak Spanish as their primary or secondary language. I have faith in the Timberlane Regional Budget Committee that you'll find ways to reduce the budget without making such harsh cuts to the FLES program and other staff and programs in the district. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Scanlon.
Thank you, Sarah.
Do we have anyone else, Dean?
That is it.
Okay. Thank you very much, folks, for speaking up during delegates and individuals. We're going to move on now to the administrative report, and we have a few administrators on the Zoom. So let's see, we have Jeff, we have Dr. Cochran, and we have Maria. But I'm game to hear from anyone. Why don't we start with you, Dr. Cochran? Start from the top.
Well, glad to be here tonight. Sorry to miss the last meeting. It's been an interesting almost half year for me in Timberlane, as I've come to know the district and the people in it. Very hard working group, and we do have many fabulous folks. In terms of the budget committee, I know it's always a difficult decision. Appreciate the time and effort that you put into this. I think it's important that we try and focus on the students. This is the charge for the school district. It's the charge of the superintendent. It's the charge of the school board and of the budget committee, because this is by a great margin, the single most expensive program and greatest investment that we can put into our youth and their success. Looking at where we are at this point in time, it has been a difficult year. We've been going through COVID since early March, and we know that there are people who've been negatively impacted, both health-wise and financially in that. We're trying to do the best that we can to offer students the best education that we can. And as it comes to the budget and hopes for next year, one of my hopes is that we'll have children back in school in full. Hopefully we'll have a rollout of the vaccine, and hopefully there is some chance that we could actually have all students back before the end of the year. But the charge of the budget committee and the charge of the school board to try and make decisions and allocate funds and allocate resources is a challenging one. I'm a firm believer that we try to do the best that we can with every dollar, knowing that some people are far more capable than others of meeting the tax burden. But I know you folks are taking this seriously. You're listening to people. You're trying to find a balance, and everybody's balance is different. You never get a group together like this or like the school board and ever get unanimity. And so there will be some disagreement about what that balance should be, about what programs we should value most highly. That's natural. That's part of a community, being a community, trying to find out where we are and how we're going to move forward. I've been in situations where budgets have gone up one year and down the next, or down one year and up the next. And that's the New Hampshire way, in the sense that each community gets its say on how much they will put towards education, how it will be allocated, and what the priorities are. And we do that through the participation of school board members and budget committee members, quite largely. I appreciate your time. I know there'll be times that we'll agree. I know there'll be times that we won't agree. But please know I appreciate your time, your thoughtfulness, your effort, your care and concern, and your continued support of the schools and everybody who works in them. I'd also like to thank Coral and Lori for speaking tonight. Nice job. So I appreciate being able to be here tonight. I look forward to helping in any way that I can. And thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Cochran. Jeff, did you have anything you wanted to add to the administrative report?
Well, I had mentioned at the last meeting just how overly impressed I am that with our staff, that really everyone's role in the district is different. I won't repeat myself, but I'm really just thoroughly impressed with all of our staff. Everyone has taken on new roles, new responsibilities. It is becoming a challenge, I think, in the environment that we're in, with such significant numbers outside of school relating to this virus, that our staff has really done a great job being able to keep our schools open and keep our students safe. So once again, just a big shout out to all of our staff for that. I'm just beside myself, totally impressed. So that is all.
Thank you, Jeff. And Maria, if you want to say something, you can. If not, that's not a big deal either. I know you're officially taking your role, I think, next month. Yes.
Yes, I'm taking over next month, and no, I think I second what Dr. Cochran and Jeff said, especially being extremely thankful to all the staff that has tirelessly helped us to move forward with this very challenging year. And I believe, I mean, my gratitude is to all of them that had made it possible for our kids to have their most normal environment that we can offer them. So I really appreciate all the efforts, and let's keep moving together as a team, and let's keep doing the best for our kids.
Great. Thanks, Maria.
Mhm.
All right, moving on. Reports of committees. I will start with Julie for the superintendent search.
We have not met again. We're meeting on the 23rd.
Okay.
So I'll have an update for you then. after
Christmas
that.
Eve, we call that over here in my house.
Yeah.
All right. All right, great. Thank you, Julie. You know what? I'm going to take a moment before we move on to this to the next committee. Well, you know, I'll save it for new business. I'll save it for new business. Thanks, Julie. And Mrs. Sherman, do you have anything to report about the CIP committee?
We have not had a meeting.
Okay. That was a very brief but accurate report. Thank you, Mrs. Sherman. All right, moving on to our school board friend, Mr. Boyle. Do you have anything to report, Mr. Boyle?
Sure, I think I'd like to open up the discussion here, I think, which is an important discussion here for the evening. Approximately 3 weeks ago, the school board directed the superintendent to come up with between $1.5 to $2 million of proposed cuts, because what we are faced with is an increased budget of approximately $3 million. We're losing about $1.6 million in state revenue. So needless to say, that's a lot of money, 4.6 million in total. So we asked the superintendent if he could come up with some ideas, to basically keep Timberlane, obviously. We understand the function of Timberlane. And I think he and his staff did a great job. They did a presentation to the school board last week. There was this conversation back and forth. I'm a little disheartened at hearing some of our employees talk about and suggesting that this was kind of implying done lackadaisical, because it definitely wasn't done lackadaisical. There was quite a bit of in-depth discussion, and Dr. Cochran clearly spent a lot of time with his senior staff and building principals, including. So I don't think the administration took it very lightly at all. I'm sure Dr. Cochran will be able to go into a little more detail how they went about it, but I want to compliment the superintendent on what he did. The school board asked him to do a task. He did the task. In fact, he kind of overdid it in some respects, because he came up with about $2.3 million of cuts, and the board, after deliberation, passed $2.3 million of cuts. And then Dr. Cochran jumped in and said, not so fast. Could you guys give me back 300,000 of it? To which we very quickly supported our superintendent. We realize what we're up against, and this is the budget. The proposed budget is clearly the function of the budget committee. We're aware of that at the school board, but we at the school board level are trying to provide some direction, where the school board is going. So what we did, and I think it was pretty well done. And again, I want to thank the superintendent for the effort that he and staff did. It was pretty thoughtful what he did, and quite a few of these positions were open positions. And it's as Dr. Cochran said a few minutes ago, this is 1 year. So every year is different. Every year has been different since this is my 4th year on the board. And every year we seem to have certain priorities. This year we were hit with a little unexpected increase. We, as a school board, are addressing that issue, and we feel that's a pretty serious job to do, and that's what we're doing. In terms of CIP, I will be getting in touch with Mrs. Sherman, because I had a brief conversation with Dr. Cochran and some of his staff to try to come up with the best way that we can spend approximately $1.5 million in capital, because no matter what the world is doing, we have to maintain our buildings. And so basically, we're still looking at the best way to spend approximately the $1.5 million, $1.6 million that's in our capital lines. So we will be having a meeting before the public hearing. But as we all know, when you get into this time of year, the days are very short and precious there. You run to Christmas. It's amazing how very quick we hit deadlines. So with that is the school board update. So basically the budget and where this is going is clearly a priority of the school board right now, as well as we're trying to do whatever we can with the 4 union groups that are, we're trying to do what we can to make this happen for the people who work for our district. So.
Thank you, Brian. Brian, do you know offhand where things stand with the HVAC RFP?
Yeah, actually, we reported.
I'd let
last week. Which Brian? I'm sorry. On my screen, we got 2 of us side by side, so I'm.
Let Dr. Brian handle that.
Okay.
Did you want me to handle? Okay, sorry. So the RFP has gone out. Train has been the successful vendor, and they will be beginning the work on the testing and balancing the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday of next week. They expect to be able to get to all the buildings and get the work done in that time period. So I believe, Mr. Dowd, they have been awarded the bid officially.
Correct, yeah.
And our consultant has worked with them to make the arrangements. I believe they may have been in district already a couple of times, so they'll have some familiarity. But the hope is they'll get all of the testing and a good start on the balancing as well.
Great. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to unfinished business, and we'll start off with a review of the school board reviewed staffing and program reductions, and then we'll open that up for some discussion. So Jeff, I'm going to hand the reins over to you so you can review that with us.
Okay, just a moment. I will share it out from the agenda package. I'll see. So in your agenda package, I included a summary of the school board recommended changes to the budget. And initially, and Dr. Cochran can feel free to speak to this as well. Initially, we had put forward, I believe, open and vacant positions. So I'll go by category, if you will. Open and vacant positions, FLES positions, elementary and middle school specialists, technology education support, high school administration, and high school teachers. And I'm going to just frame this up that the school board reviewed $2.357 million in potential reductions. And there was a request to repurpose an existing position, which would add about $50,000 to the proposal. So it wouldn't reduce it, would add it. So the net staffing cost reviewed by the school board was $2,307,000. That's approximately 27 to 29, a reduction of 27 to 29 FTEs, of which the initial line right here, 683,614, are positions totaling 11 FTEs, which are not currently either occupied or posted. So they're open and vacant positions, which are unposted. So again,
Jeff, can I stop you right there?
Sure.
Before you go to the next lines, can you jump down and show what those 11 FTEs are, please?
I can, yeah. You jump down right here. So that's a breakdown of the 11 FTEs. Again, these are positions which are vacant and which are not posted. And
Not posted? Is that what
Not-
you just said?
not posted.
Not posted
Correct.
versus what, I'm sorry to interrupt. Todd, can I ask a question?
Yes, you may.
I'm sorry. In reference to the letter that the TSSU sent that showed positions that are advertised. That's a different list?
Correct.
All right, so these are not been posted. Okay,
Correct.
thank you.
Yep. And Sue, if I may, and I know that Phil has his hand up, I actually got a correction from Lori just a moment ago, and I believe two Timberlane High School positions had been listed. I think it's actually 3 from her letter earlier. So there was an additional position that she may have missed.
Listed online, you mean?
Right, that she may have missed in the communication that you read earlier.
Okay. So these are not posted, not advertised.
Correct.
And how long have the, Phil, did you have a question? I'm sorry, I don't have you on my screen right now, but go ahead, Phil.
I did. Just a quick question. The assistant principal position in the elementary school that is open and vacant on the sheet here, are you able to say which town, which elementary school that is?
If the superintendent would like to speak to it. All right.
Oh, go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah.
I mean, I believe it's referencing Atkinson, is it not?
No, Pollard.
Pollard. Yeah,
Pollard?
there
Oh,
were
sorry.
in
Okay.
that school there were 2 assistant principals, and so this represents
right.
one which I don't think was
Yeah.
filled at all last year, if I recall.
Correct, it wasn't.
Thank you for that clarification, Jeff.
Certainly.
And the time that these have been open is obviously probably varies, but generally speaking, most of these have been open for longer than a year. Is that correct?
Generally speaking, yes, up to 2 years in some
Okay.
cases.
Well, I
So
don't know
we-
how you can call them open when they haven't been posted and they haven't been advertised. So how would anyone know that they could even apply for the positions if they're not open or posted? So, I mean, I understand the assistant principal job. I understand the Latin job. We just did that one, or the board just did that one. And I understand the admin, data and assessment. That person's been gone a little bit a while here. I just don't understand. You've got all these para jobs and yet you weren't advertising them. So that clears up a lot. That little piece of misinformation needs to be sure that, I believe the board understands that, or maybe they don't, but they should. And so should we. That's valuable information to know. They haven't even been advertised.
So can I just ask us, maybe this is a dumb question, why have they been open and not advertised and around for so long? I mean, am I missing something?
As a general proposition, if the positions did not look like they were needing to be filled for whatever reason, they haven't been. If there hadn't been a need for the positions to be filled, they've been left open. As you can see with the para positions, even with the ones that are posted, which I think would now total 8, we're having a very hard time filling those 8. And then there's an additional, I believe, 6 listed here as well.
Mm-hmm. And do you happen to know the number of the total paras that we actually have on staff right now? Is it in the 100, over 100?
I feel like it's over 100,
106?
6, I believe, yeah.
Phil?
Yeah, this is a rather delicate question. I'll do my best to ask it. Obviously, we know there's a variety of reasons why something might not get posted. You spoke to some of them already. Are you able to tell us, and I'm sure each one is a little bit different from the other, they're not all the same, but for any of these positions, was the administration, current or the former, instructed not to post these?
By who?
The question is to Mr. Dowd.
I don't handle posting, Phil. I don't, that's an HR function. I don't handle the posting. I can only speak to the fact that they're open and not posted and vacant.
I can tell you, Phil, that I've not instructed anyone to not post positions that we should be filling.
I think the question more, forgive me, let me clarify. Have you been encouraged, discouraged, or do you have any knowledge of the previous administration being discouraged or being told not to post these positions?
No, I have no such knowledge.
Okay.
Cool. Any other
Can we
questions?
go back up to the full list?
Yes.
Okay, I have a question about that.
I want to get Carsick here.
Okay, there you go. 3 TRHS teachers. In what areas?
That would be dependent on registration and need. Knowing that we're, as a district, going down 2% of students per year, Knowing the staffing and numbers this year, felt that three staff cuts would be doable and still be able to maintain the breadth of program and also the class sizes that we're looking for. We have some guesses as to what they might be, but quite honestly, a lot of that is dependent on enrollment, which you get enrollment shifts from year to year. But we believe that we could make the schedule work and offer a breadth of classes that we would like with the reduction.
I guess where I'm coming from is I'd like your guarantee that those three cuts aren't cutting the Project Lead the Way program out of the high school, because that's roughly it's 2.5 or 3 FTEs running that.
Yeah, Peter, there's been no mention that I know of Project Lead the Way, but we do know that we have some programs that are niche, but that are also very, very important to some students. I think we're looking primarily at core subject areas. And the reason for that is that you have a greater ability to move class sizes and make changes. So I would be surprised if if the 3 positions don't all come from core subject areas, as opposed to some of the specialty markets, just because we have greater ability to move kids in and out and not impact programs. So if class size goes up a bit or really doesn't drop as much as it might, we can still try to offer the breadth of the program. We've had no conversation about taking anything out of the curriculum. I can tell you that. There's been no, well, these courses, what I mean? So
other than FLES.
I'm sorry?
Other than FLES.
I think he was asking about high school.
Well, just in general, that's cutting a full program.
Yes, in response to the specific question, the question was.
Okay. Now, I took a look at the NESDEC report on school populations projections. And while I do see the high school going down for a few more years, I see the elementaries all increasing in populations from like now. So, how is that reflected in this?
I think our class sizes in elementary are actually pretty favorable. I don't see a significant impact in that regards.
Okay. But that NESDEC report did show the number of elementary students starting to increase again, correct?
I've not had a chance. I apologize, Peter. It's been a busy few weeks. I've not had a look. I know that going into this last report, the state average was dropping about 1% a year, and the district as a whole is dropping about twice that, at 2% a year. If there's a turnaround, as sometimes happen, often it has to do with housing and availability and cost and the ability of families with school-age children to move into a community. So it's often driven by that. But in terms of NESDEC, the state trend is been consistent for a long period of time. But I don't think there's anything in the NESDEC report itself that, looking at long-term trends, are going to make a difference in terms of how we're trying to manage this for, next year. I think the data that we have in front of us is real time, and that's what we're counting on right now.
You might also think in the long term, and this may be just a tad off topic, I apologize if it is, the New Hampshire Office of Strategic Initiatives 2 or 3 years ago put out forecasts for total populations of all the towns in New Hampshire, and starting on like a 5-year basis. They didn't look specifically at students, they looked at total populations. And I think you'll find that beginning, again, like now, 2020 to 2025, Sandown, Danville, and Atkinson populations are forecast by the state to start to be increasing. Plastow is kind of steady state, is forecast to be steady state.
excuse me, that being the current building inspector of Atkinson, Peter, I can tell you that about the bulk of the stuff being built in Atkinson right now, they're condominiums. So Atkinson has become like a little Florida in terms of the, for whatever reason, we seem to be attracting the over 60 crowd right now. But the population is clearly growing, but they're not child rearing.
Okay.
Well, irrespective of who's building the houses, the authorities that track this stuff estimate the population's increasing, not decreasing in Atkinson and surrounding communities in the lower grades.
We just haven't seen it. So if it's like that 2 or 3 years from now, I guess we'll address it 2 or 3 years from now.
I just have a really quick question. When you talk about open and vacant positions, what is the long-term challenge of potentially refilling or reopening those positions, once you sort of take them away, right? So if these positions are taken away, obviously they're gone, but at some point these positions, I would assume, were open for a reason or filled for a reason. What's the challenge or difficulty of just eliminating those positions and then trying to get those back at some point?
If I can speak to that first, and then perhaps Brian or Jeff.
Yes, please.
Stephen, this situation is a little unusual. I've been in senior administration in 3 other districts and never seen open and vacant positions sitting in a report like that before. Essentially, it's every position is allocated in every other budget year that I've worked on. It is allocated to the position, no more, no less. And I have, in a couple of cases, had some sort of niche positions that were not able to fill, but not the number of open and vacant positions like has been, in Timberlane for the last multiple years. So it's somewhat of that trend is somewhat of an outlier based on my experience.
Thank you.
And Stephen, if I could add on to that basically, first of all, welcome aboard here, but every year, that's all part of the purpose of what the school board and the budget committee go through. If all of a sudden we find that there's a need for an additional program, and it will go through the process. They have, the superintendent has his team, always has had a team. This is my 4th year on the board, and programs, they don't come from the school board. They actually come up through the administration. They get approved by the school board and get funded by the budget committee and the voters. So that just, if something is gone today, that doesn't mean it's gone forever.
Thank you, Brian. Yeah, so I think that was what I was hoping to hear, right? In the simple fact that, making this decision today or for this, upcoming year to eliminate positions doesn't necessarily mean that if the need arises that position couldn't be put back into the budget.
And Dr. Cochran just came on board this year as our interim, but we have over the last 2 years, we've seen, the previous superintendent was able to manage moving his senior team around, whether it's principal, assistant principal, and that's how the place is run, because on any people come and go on any given day, people leave the area, and life has to go on. So that's part of the reason you had there was a need, really important need from just before I got on the board, to have 2 assistant principals of Pollard. They were able to run Pollard successfully last year without that. So with that position being open, needless to say, an assistant principal position being open, an administrative position is probably worth, with benefits, probably $150,000 to $160,000. That's why it caught the eye, I'm sure, of Dr. Cochran's team.
Thank you.
Jeff, if I could just ask you to let me share my screen real quick. I had a question and I wanted to use this page of the NESDEC report. So I guess I'm just still struggling with, I guess, kind of back to Peter's question. So this looks to me like more like flat going from this year to next year. And so, yeah, is it less students? Yeah, but it's not overly so, right? And I guess to Peter's point, if it's lowering in the high school over the next few years, it's clearly rising in the younger grades, right? So I guess I'm not understanding, we're cutting to accommodate for some drop in enrollment in the high school, but we're not adding to accommodate for the rise in the younger grades. So I guess I'm trying to wrap my head around that, because I'm seeing a flat enrollment projection, right? And then a gradual incline after that, and district wide. So maybe Dr. Cochran, you can explain that to me, how, if I get that we have a dip in high school, and I get that we maybe even in a little bit in middle school in the next couple of years, but that seems to be offset if the number is basically remaining static over the next couple of years district wide.
I can get us to run a class size report at the elementary schools. Todd, the subject was brought up as we were, even before this process was going on, just as a normal course of events. And the general information that I was given was that by and large, compared to other districts, we're in a pretty favorable position with respect to elementary class sizes by and large.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, Jeff, you can take it back over, please. Is Jeff still with us? Oh, there he is.
I'm still with you. And Stephen, welcome to the committee. And if I can just add one slight thing on that, it's important to note that, and I think Dr. Cochran mentioned it, when a position that you might see in the budget, or in this case, we have positions that appear to be open or that are open. Initially, if we see that there may be an opening, we know that opening, or that if there's not a need, let's just say, for a particular position, there may in fact be a need for a position in a different area. And so there's an idea that if we needed a teacher in a different program, perhaps we've had someone who's left, we may not need that position for whatever reason, a number of reasons, and we may be able to repurpose that position into another position where there is a need. And so the positions that you're looking at right now are positions that you had seen just a moment ago, are positions that for the most part had been open and there had not been the need. And so you saw that in the case of the administrator. Gee, do we really need it? Can we do without it? Can we do without it? And we'd go on. And looking at it now, saying, yep, we've got this position. We've been a year into it. Haven't had a need for the position. Let's consider it for reduction from the budget. So that's a good thing. So.
Okay. Any other questions for Dr. Cochran?
I have a couple, if I could, Todd.
Yes, Mrs.
On this
Sherman?
proposed budget, I have two areas I wanted to just understand. The technology education support at 219,000 would be 2 FTEs. Can you clarify what that is? Who those, not who they are, but what the positions are?
Actually, we haven't drilled down to that level yet. We have been engaged in some conversations. We felt comfortable moving this forward, but we're not at the point of identifying down to the level. In some cases, by identifying cuts or identifying people, and riffing is about positions. Right. And so in this case, I think we'd be better off leaving the situation where it is right now. But by and large, it's the support functions.
So it's not teachers, it's
correct.
It's directors, but it's staff, not teachers. And what about
of the technology, education, and support? There are no teaching positions in that. No.
Okay.
How many, if you don't mind myself, Brian, do you know how many people are in under technology and education / support? Roughly.
Yes, I believe altogether we have 7, somewhere in that range, maybe 8.
Throughout the district, that's it?
Yeah.
And they have different levels of what they do, right?
To some extent, yes.
Yeah, some go into classrooms, some just deal with the hardware and software, the hookups, the Wi-Fi. I mean, they have different things that they do for support. Okay, my reason for bringing that up, Dr. Cochran, is that, in this technology-driven age, I was a little surprised that you would offer that as a place to make any kind of riff. And the other question I had was about because I'm a middle school specialist, elementary and middle school specialist. What's a specialist? Is that
Non-core, no core classroom teachers.
I know what a core classroom teacher is. I mean, since Peter brought up his topic, is it, cooking, sewing, STEAM, STEM, art, computer, are those considered the specialist areas of specialty? Fine arts?
I would say in terms of specialists, it would be essentially anything's not a core subject.
Of course.
For example, world language, a core. So it's some of them are not classroom teachers per se. So we're looking at supports and general organization of some things. We have multiple different approaches and programs at elementary and middle school level. And it's going to be a combination of some reduction, but also we're looking at changing some functionality and some delivery of programs and services that we feel that we can do a better job at by redefining some roles.
Okay, thank you for that information.
You're welcome.
I'd like to ask Fless. I watch all the school board meetings, and I know a lot of people throughout the district, as I'm sure many of my partners in crime here on the budget committee do. I'm a parent of a child in Fless who's a fourth grader, and I have the luxury of having two teenagers who one's a senior and one's graduated from high school, and they didn't have that program. But I know that they watched their little sister and have been amazed by what they've seen. I myself have, and just a little anecdote. I minored in Spanish in college. I took it all through high school, and I've heard stories of, like Mrs. Scanlon earlier, whose daughter's in 6th grade, of them walking into 6th grade and the teacher's speaking nothing but Spanish, and they understand it. And I didn't have that, done to me until I was the end of my junior year, senior year of high school, and then in college. And I think that's remarkable. But my point about all the school board meetings, I haven't heard anybody complaining. I haven't heard anyone, saying that this program's not working. And as a matter of fact, I don't know how we would even categorize that at this point, since the only kids we would really even test are in a pandemic year in 6th grade. So can you maybe give us a little background as to why we would just scuttle that program when, by all accounts, it seems to be working and well received?
God, we wouldn't be here if we weren't in a situation where we had, a differential budgetarily of multiple millions of dollars. So it's one of the things under consideration.
Okay.
As there are a lot of other things.
Yeah.
I mean, we're looking at salary and benefit increases of what, 3 million, and then we have the budget shortfalls.
Yep.
So in order to come up with I was instructed by the board to work with administration to try and come up with some possible ideas that would result in a $2 million decrease. We did that. We went slightly over with the notion that might provide some flexibility, because things don't fall into nice baskets in terms of amount of money.
Yep. Okay. Mrs. Sherman, did you ever have any involvement in this program as far as through the years, how it was built, how it was implemented? Do you have any knowledge on this program? I mean,
Well, I did get, I got assigned to serve on the steering committee when they were even considering the thought of having a language in the elementary school. And it was interesting because it was so many elementary people on the committee, of course. And they worked so hard to find the right language. And then over the next, this has been 7 years in the building. I was on the curriculum committee. And so therefore that just continued on, that building the curriculum for each year successively, hiring the correct and qualified staff. It is kind of a niche, as Dr. Cochran says, it's kind of a niche program. You got to find the right person who can teach elementary kids and teach Spanish. I can speak Latin, but I'm not teaching elementary school kids. And then the tweaking that has to be done to schedules at the elementary school to make room for the program. And then the tweaking and adjustment of the middle school curriculum as those kids now are in 6th grade and coming along, and the tweaking and adjustment at the high school level. So it continues to kind of flow along. And so we're at the 7-year mark here, and stopping means everything's got to go backwards again. Adjust your schedule again, tweak backwards. The middle school staff has got their curriculum set, ready to go with these new 6th graders that are here, Mrs. Scanlon's student being one of them. And now you're going to go back and redo all of that. I am concerned about that. I loved being on that committee. Elementary school were very, very, very excited about immersion of kids in the language, being little sponges. Everybody was taking Spanish at one point. And it was kind of an exciting kind of class to see. They came and did a couple programs at the school board, and Brian and I were both on the board then, I believe, when they came and did a couple of different programs about it or talked about it. So, a lot of years invested.
So that's a lot of, I'm hearing a lot of time and a lot of effort. Jeff, do we have a number as to like what's been invested in this program over the course of 7 years? Just rough figure or it's not nothing, right?
Dr. Cochran may have a point, I'm not sure.
Dr. Cochran?
Yeah, I just wanted to get back to the point that you started with, Todd, and that is you made the point that you haven't heard people identifying that FLES is a program that's not working. I just wanted to provide some context and perspective, and that is that I don't believe we have any programs in the district that I would identify as not working.
Right.
Love to hear that.
Yeah, that's good.
Yes, it is.
Thank you. Fantastic.
But to that end, Dr. Cochran, this is a program that not only, by all accounts from parents that I've heard, I used to be on school board as well, by the way, along with Mrs. Sherman and when Brian started. It's been very successful. The kids love it. The parents love it. You've got half of the population of Timberlane is taking FLES classes, daily. Yet people are looking at cutting the whole program without even informing the parents in any meaningful way, without soliciting inputs. And, I see this as a big problem.
Well, it's interesting. I as I sit here, listen to this. When I think of the history of FLES, how it came in at the stroke of 10 o'clock on a school board night, wasn't this reviewed for months? I'm sure it's been a very successful program. And then I hear earlier in the night that why can't the school board look at other things like charge for athletics? Bottom line is, it's all about a bottom line. So we have asked the superintendent to come up with ways to make Timberlane, keep Timberlane, if you will. We're a public school district. So I think he did a great job. You can't have everything and then pretend that we're just going to keep spending the money, like the money comes out of nowhere.
Brian, the retirement system in New Hampshire is virtually insolvent. They will continue raising the amount of money that each municipality has to put in per employee year on year for the next 20 years. So this proposal, cutting programs, it is a direct response to that, is going to have to happen year on year per your scenario. And we're going to end up with nothing. We're going to end up with empty buildings with kids roaming the halls.
Empty buildings. Well,
With kids roaming the halls.
Our empty buildings, we're still bringing a budget on these empty buildings, Peter, of over $70 million. So this is hardly this large cut that people refer to here. When you start talking about like one particular program, which is involving 5 staff members, and there's a good chance that probably 3 out of 5 of them will be absorbed from someplace else as people retire in our district.
It's actually 6 if you read the paper here, but yeah.
It's 6, but there's 5 working. There's another empty one, vacant one.
And it affects half of the students within Timberlane.
Is that right?
Yeah, every student in elementary. Add them up, Brian.
So then I wonder what they missed out on, because we didn't add anything to the school day. So what were they doing before then? Have our math in all of our scores, have those just been getting better, or?
They haven't gone down.
I don't know.
Sure.
Have we tested the kids specifically that just did FLES versus the rest? I mean,
Oh,
I don't think we've compared and contrasted that, Brian. And to your earlier point, listen, you were on the budget committee and the school board last year, Brian, and you were on the school board and the budget committee the year before that. And both years you came with a recommendation of cutting into staff and cutting into benefits, and we worked together, right? We compromised. And we put together a holistic approach to come to the same ends. And by the way, both of those budgets passed at the ballot, right?
Okay.
Okay. So we all are on the same page here. We want to put something out in front of the taxpayers that's digestible to them, right? And I think it's clear as day that we have not been over and adding too much to the budget over the years. We level funded it. Then we barely went above a level fund. And we did the same thing last year. And no one's saying we're not going to try to do that tonight. But to take it all from those lines and not even look at anything else. I mean, we can't slash the budget, the 76 million, by $4 or $5 million. We can't, because of the retirement, because of the raises, because of the health benefits.
We didn't.
No, I know you didn't, Brian. But my point is, if we can agree as a committee that we want to come to a number of about, say, $2 million, it doesn't all have to come from one place. Just like last year, it didn't come from one place. It came from multiple places, holistically across the budget. That is the responsible way to budget, not just pull everything out of one area and then ride on down to the sunset.
Well, Todd, we didn't pull it out of one area. What you had was a superintendent, you like we talked about that at the last meeting, you have approximately 2/3 of the budget is staffing and benefits. You are seeing $2 million being pulled out of that.
But you didn't ask him to look anywhere else. No. Right?
I did not ask him, but I
don't mean you. I mean the board. I don't mean you. But
okay.
But he was specifically asked, and this was all he had to work with. There were no other lines considered, right? So
I can't honestly.
We're gonna get to some alternatives here in a minute. So I don't want to sidetrack things. I'm just.
Hey, Todd.
Yes,
Todd,
go ahead, Christy.
Can I add one thing about the FLES program where I have a question about? So we started this program 7 years ago, and I was, I wasn't skeptical on it. I was actually looking forward to see how, it would unfold. So my understanding is that the goal of this was by the time kids got to 6th grade, they would have somewhat of a fluency in Spanish, and then they'd have the option, do they want to, switch to another language? So my son missed the cutoff. He's in 7th grade. Right. So he was in 1st grade when they started it in kindergarten. So now we have this kindergarten class that started it 7 years ago. They're at that pivotal point, right? 6th grade, where now we get to see, did this program do what we intended this program to do? So we have our first set of 6th graders that's taking their Spanish into the middle school, and now we're cutting it. It's like we've reached the point to see the success, and now we're just nixing it. And my concern is taking it off the table, down the line, will we be able to reinstate it? I guess my big question is why are we taking it off now when we haven't even really given it the opportunity to be successful at the middle school level?
And the high school level.
And the high school level. I mean, we're cutting it off as soon as we get to the point where we're gonna see the success of it.
Todd, I don't usually quote, studies, but every study talks about kids that are immersed in a foreign language, whatever it is, Chinese, Arabic, Spanish, Latin, German, early on develop more confidence in themselves, more confidence in being able to carry on a conversation, more confidence moving forward, thinking in a different way. Foreign language requires you to think a little bit differently. And I just think we haven't even given it a chance. I agree with you, Christy. I have a grandson who missed the cutoff too. And it's too bad, because I would have thought he would have been a little sponge and have been speaking Spanish pretty fluently. So I hate to see it. I hate to see that program be taken away, because that's what this cut would do. That it's a shame.
And Sue, just to that point as well, I also have a fourth grader who I really witnessed. I had 4 years in high school of Spanish, but I really witnessed it this year with remote learning, while seeing some of her Zoom classes and seeing where her Spanish is going, that it's working. She's learning the language. She's learning it a lot differently, and learning it at that young age is the time we want to get through to these kids. And I just think it would be a shame to see that the program
So
go.
the
I
budget
really do.
committee envisioned 12 years of Spanish. I don't even think the administration did that. Is that
Sure.
what I'm hearing? The budget
Yeah,
committee
that was the
thought 12
plan.
years of Spanish?
Yeah, that these kids would continue and takes probably 2 years in middle school of a language, maybe switch in 8th grade if they wish to try French, but then continue in high school and take at least 3, I'm not going to say 12 years, so that they'd have 10 years of a foreign language. Yeah, that was the plan all along, that we would have this immersion situation.
And then they switched to French and they start all over again. This is interesting, because you're right. Todd, as you pointed out, this conversation has never happened in my 4 years in the school board. I can tell you that.
Right, but yet you're cutting it out of the budget. You're taking it as a place to reduce the budget. If we could find $563,851 out of someplace else that wouldn't, turn the heat off, would that be okay?
I find it very interesting that I'm not about to. It's rather interesting that I thought I'd be hearing words of encouragement here from the budget committee after we went about getting input from the administration and the senior staff. And they did their job. And now we're going to sit back and say, well, you know what? No, this is what we want to do instead. Interesting.
What do you mean input from senior staff about what? The FLES program?
About the entire, where would you recommend we make some cuts? That's what I'm talking about.
Okay.
That's what we did, and that's what they did.
Okay.
But you directed the superintendent specifically in your motion with staffing and programming, Brian. That I listened to the motion a couple more times, and that's what your superintendent did. This is all staffing and positions and program. I understand.
And I was incorrect. I guess it's over 70% of the budget, so I would expect that's where it would come from. Yeah, it's going to come from staffing, and yeah, that's the bulk of the budget.
Some is. It doesn't all have to, Brian.
No. But that's the bulk of the budget. That's all I'm saying.
It didn't last year.
The math.
Yeah.
Todd, I have a question.
Yes.
I'm just wondering, do we have, well, I mean, administration must have it somewhere, any recent test results for for the last, 5 years of these students STAR testing or whatever to see if their math or English had suffered at all, from if they didn't have as much time because they were in the Spanish class? Is there, I'm trying to quantify if it has interfered with any of their other learning of their core classes.
Oh, so that's what you're connecting with it, that to learn Spanish, they had to learn less math or less social studies?
Well, that's just what I was wondering, because someone had mentioned that they didn't, we didn't increase the school day.
I did. Yes.
And yet they have time, but they found time to have Spanish. So what got cut or shortened in order for them to be in the Spanish class?
So, Julie, this is Peter talking.
Yeah.
Many months ago now, Sandy O'Lear gave a presentation about all the test results, elementary all the way up to high school, and we haven't gone down in in any area. I can find that report, I think, and send it to you.
Okay, no, that'd be great.
Good question. Yeah.
Thank you.
If I may, Todd?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, just to clarify, no one's, it's not on the chopping block because people think the program's not working. Right. Like, and I understand folks are trying to defend it, and I'm not necessarily supportive of cutting it, but Dr. Cochran was told to cut the budget by $2 million. He was told to specifically do it in a certain area. And at some point, and I take Dr. Cochran at his word, and I agree with him, there isn't a failing program in the school. You have to vote things off the island. And so invariably, we're going to come to the table and be like, but it's successful here, it's successful here, it's successful here. And no matter what he chooses, we're going to have those conversations. And so this is painful. I do challenge the assertion that the default position should be that we need to cut. I mean, I do question that. I'm not opposed to cuts categorically, but it seems like the desire to cut the budget by a certain amount was made before we did a needs assessment. But into language, I think we should be quick to dismiss and even mock its role in our schools. It's incredibly important. The majority of US residents will speak Spanish as a first language in about 26 years. So let's look at this. Forget the whole humanity of it, and kids are better learners, they understand the culture. Let's look at it purely capitalistically. Our kids will be ill-prepared for the future if they are not bilingual, period. And I know we're not charged with thinking 20 years ahead. Really, we got to balance the budget for the next fiscal year and do it and mitigate as much harm as possible in a tough budget year. I get it. But I just really want to challenge the sort of dismissive tone I've heard from some towards the essential role that language has in our schools, especially at the younger ages. But again, if we're going to cut stuff here, we got to pick something we don't like, whether it be facilities. And we all know we've been neglecting facilities for decades. But I'm not sure the cuts need to be as steep as they are, personally. But I could be convinced otherwise. But I just feel like there's been a group of people who solidified on a number that needed to be cut before the fog had even cleared, before they did a needs assessment.
Okay, thank you, Phil. Before we move on to Jeff's next section here, do we have anyone else that would like to address this table? Julie?
I still wasn't quite sure if I could get clarification on where did they find time to add in the Spanish classes? What was cut out or shortened in order for them to have this class?
I don't think anyone knows unless Dr.
Not here. we would need to have one of the admins from one of the elementary schools jump on and give us a little information. They really made some scheduling changes to get that all in. It is one of their, we'll call it UA classes during the week. I think one period is, right? Christy, you guys that have kids in those classes. But then they do another little tweaky day, you know, it's like how the high school does a block, and then they do a skinny day, they call it. So, you know, it's quite creative to do it. I don't think they took anything away, Julie, but that's my gut educator. It's an amazing juggling act to get it all in, because they don't want to teach less of anything. They want to teach more of everything.
Right.
And Dr. Cochran would agree. They don't want to teach less.
Yep.
But we that's a great question to ask. And I wish Sandy Allaire was on, or one of the elementary principals was on and could jump on and answer that for us, because I think they'd make you feel better about it than good old retired me. What do I know?
You know a lot.
I do know that when we had a conversation about this, Lucy Cantos gave me a stack of scheduling pieces and took me through where we are in terms of the UA, you know, and all of the other pieces. She could do far more justice to us than I could. But it has been relatively complex. So, but unfortunately, in my short time here, there have been a few things on the go, and scheduling of elementary schools in Flesh in particular is not one of the things that I've had a chance to get to yet. So I apologize for not having that information tonight, but I can get it.
Well, you might not have this either, Dr. Cochran, but on that same note, if FLES goes away, do those students then learn more in English, math, or another UA, or do we know what happens to that block of time that's currently being utilized for the FLES program?
Well, one of the things that we do know is that in the elementary schools, we don't have a UA for library, which is somewhat unusual. In most cases, there is a UA that involves a library. Our model basically is a teacher's book, is my understanding. And I know it's been in COVID, but when I've been in elementary schools, the library has been essentially been busy at times, but I would say less than 50% of the time. So I believe that was one of the possible changes. But I don't have that detail on me, unfortunately.
Okay. All right, Jeff, I had asked a question earlier. Do you have a rough number of what has been invested in this program over the course of the last 7 years?
A while ago.
If we're going to get rid of something, I'd like to know what we've actually invested into it, before making that decision like that.
I would guess that it's at least, I know it's 350, but I would guess that it's probably more along the lines of at least 400,000, not including the ongoing curriculum development that our staff, continue to do with the program as the program continues to evolve.
Okay. Okay. And that's total over 7 years?
Correct. Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
And it'd be more again if you include the instructional staff. If I recall it's not the type of thing that you go in and say, well, what's age appropriate to teach for Spanish for like a 6-year-old or an 8-year-old or a 10-year-old. I get the impression it was more developed to intertwine with the existing curriculum to reaffirm or to reaffirm the existing curriculum that the students are learning.
Yeah.
Portions of it, but just to reiterate it, if you will, but just in a different language. So
yeah,
it's not quite just bringing in and saying, oh, what's appropriate for this age and what's appropriate for that. I think it really connected with our curriculum very well.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I do see my daughter do math and reading and speaking. So, okay. Any other questions for the school board recommendations before we move on to the next table? All right, Jeff, let's show what you found. And I'm going to give a little background for this as well. I asked Jeff after doing a bit of this exercise myself, looking at trends and you know, the history of the actuals versus the voted versus the and factoring in the pandemic, you know, in some instances, and then I asked Jeff and Maria to kind of look for some low hanging fruit and do similar to what we did last year and the year before, which is, you know, where are there some other lines where, you know, where we might, you know, find some gains, find some places where we could trim here and there, and use the benefit of what we can do as the budget committee, which is look at the entire budget and every line and try to come up with you know, a way to, you know, not throw a big increase on the taxpayers, while at the same time, you know, maintaining, you know, the excellence in education that we're hoping to provide these students. I mean, I don't know about the rest of you, but, you know, man, I'm doing this and being on this committee because I want excellence in education but I want it at a price that the taxpayers can swallow, and that's how I've gone into every budget season since I've been on here. And I know all the people that voted me on want me to be thinking that way. So you know, I'm personally never forgetting that there's people that pay the bills, whether they have kids in the school or not. So we always need to be conscious of that. And so I'll with that, I'm just going to hand it over to Jeff and let him kind of go through here and explain some of these things. And then Jeff and Maria and I, we jumped on a call earlier before this meeting and came up with a little bit more to add in. So we'll show you that afterwards, but go ahead and go through this table if you wouldn't mind, Jeff.
Sorry, I was on mute there. My words are rather profound as well, but
Happens to me all the time. I'm sure. Happens to me.
always are. We asked for $1 million, and really just looking at what we had in front of us, I was able to come up with 647,000. I have, and I'll just run through that list really rather quickly. There are some changes that I'm not real comfortable proposing necessarily, but they're there, and I'll tell you a little bit about them. The first is to remove track change allowance. So what we have is we have teachers who may change tracks based on a completion of educational program, which puts them on a different track, and we have an allowance in the budget for that of 50,000. It's been a lot in the budget, and if we were to look at one area, maybe that's one area we can look at. We have turnover automatically, and just because we have a teacher who leaves with, let's say, 15 years experience, we may bring in a teacher with 4 years experience. We may bring in a teacher with 15 years experience, but as a general proposition, we probably have enough money in turnover to cover that. We also have police detail scheduled in our athletic fees for police detail in the fall. This is really a decision that the school board and extra administration will be making, but I don't know if it's necessary. I'd recommend taking 10,000 out of the professional development outside services line, which is simply based on trend. We have a line for high school instructional expenditures just based on trend, removing $3,800. It's a very seldom used line anyway. We have a Medicaid billing service, which we use, which kind of operates on a percentage of money that they're able to recover for us or obtain for us from Medicaid. Medicaid revenue has gone down all around in all of the districts, and so that probably can come down. Next,
Jeff, can you hang on for a sec?
Sure.
You're talking about decreasing
just the amount.
The Medicaid.
Yep, just the amount that our vendor collects. So they collect a percentage of it, of the money.
One of the things that's impacted us significantly in the last couple of years is the shortage in special ed administration has really hampered our ability to take full advantage of, in a significant way, Medicaid reimbursement. Back in about 14-15, reimbursement was over $600,000, and our costs haven't gone down substantially. Now, there have been some regulatory changes, and we're looking at, according to the Zoom meeting that I was on last Friday with Beth Rincon, The folks from MSB said we should be looking at somewhere around a 20% drop from prior years. One of the issues is we've been significantly underbilling for lack of special ed administrative capacity to oversee Medicaid reimbursement. One of the most significant reasons for putting that in the budget was based on my conversation with Beth on where our numbers should be. We anticipate that position will more than pay for itself just by virtue of our ability to maximize our Medicaid reimbursement. In fact, it should, by adding that position, we should cover that and significant monies over top of that. So that's where that is coming from. That's a case where adding a position actually pays for the position plus.
That's absolutely correct. Yep.
Great.
Absolutely correct.
Thank you, Dr. Cochran.
Thank you for that. I had looked at the utility line as well. I know that that's a favorite of the committee. So looking at that, you know, I don't really think that we have an awful lot to trim out of those lines, but if we wanted to try and take some funding out, somewhat based on trend, you could. Natural gas, electric, vehicle oil, fuel oil and vehicle fuel, all about 125,000 altogether. I don't think that our savings, we will have some savings next year, I believe. I don't know that that's going to really be, that might be a little too much out of those lines, but it is what it is. I'm letting the committee know it's pretty aggressive on those lines. So
it is, but just to point out, that function above the objects is 3.2 million, correct?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. The safety and security line 2660, that is a line that we use for supplies, and we have fees that we pay for our existing security system, our cameras and all that infrastructure. That's being paid out of a different line, so it makes sense to take 30,000 out of a $40,000 line. Field trip co-curriculars, that's just based on trend, 5,000. Now here's where it gets real dicey, and I don't know who it was. I believe Dr. Cochran actually may have mentioned it earlier, that every position in the district has a budget associated specifically with that position. The committee has asked, Jeff, can you tell?
Actually, no, it wasn't
What's
me.
that?
No, it wasn't me.
It wasn't you? Who was it? Well, anyway, we every year we end up with some level of surplus that I'll attribute to those positions that we're in the middle of. So we have someone who's for whatever reason left the district, and there's a period of time that we're looking to hire. And I think you saw earlier we had 6 and 8 para positions, for example, that were vacant. And so that's just an example in that particular position. The effect of, if we had, let's just say over the course of the year, maybe a total of 2.5 teaching positions vacant, which would mean that at any given time in the year, we would have at least 2 to 3 teacher positions posted to be filled. Perhaps someone's leaving or someone's not able to complete the year out, whatever, we're not able to hire, whatever that might be. You have some savings there. And then I've looked at even a modest amount of maybe 2 paras vacant on the regular education side, 2 paras vacant on the positions vacant on the special education side. So, and then I factored in FICA retirement for teacher, non-teacher, and insurance on those positions. This is something that if we are budgeting for a position, I have to budget for the position. If I have 3 positions that we're budgeting at $50,000 each, and that's in one line, that one line will have $150,000. I can't not budget, and I've told this to the committee before. If you were on the committee last year, you probably heard me say the same thing. I can't budget less than that because I think that I'm going to have, maybe not have all 3 people in that position. But that is the effect, and it turns into quite a bit in terms of dollars. The district is a rather large employer, and having some positions vacant or having some openings that take a couple months to fill each adds up over the course of a year. Again, I'm not really a big fan of these cuts. I think that this just looks at the reality that we have positions that are open, and every year we end up with surplus based on those positions having been open for that period of time and not having been filled. So I've adjusted all of those lines, and you can come out with a total in that category of $647,538. So
I just want to point out one thing, acknowledging that you are not comfortable with that, Jeff. Likewise, I know, and I'm sure Dr. Cochran isn't comfortable with the table that we just saw. So, right, but we do what we need to do, and we're trying to, you know, get to a certain place. So some of these aren't all going to be easy, just like the table above. So, but continue.
One of the things that I've been doing since I've been here and been in this role is really to look and to see what are those factors, what are those drivers, what are those annual perennial things that come up that we just end up with surplus from? What are those? What's behind that? Open positions, and obviously having positions that are vacant for that period of time, that adds up, and it's quantifiable. This is a very large district. It's a very large employer, and those numbers do add up. I don't like
What
it.
is the term that you called that earlier? Do you call that the churn or something like that?
Turnover I used for track changes, which was right here, right? It could be a churn. I mean, I guess I'd say turnover on that, but it could be a churn rate. I mean, I don't think I've used that term. But.
Yeah,
Okay.
typically from the school district perspective, it's referred to as attrition.
Okay.
So it's that just in that in between time before we have someone leave to when we have someone come back.
Now, attrition, I was part of an exercise in 2010 where we had a $3.6 million shortfall in Nashua, and the board used to budget $800,000 a year. Now it's a significantly bigger budget, of course, but they budgeted $800,000 a year in tuition because that had been the trend. And then conditions changed within the retirement system, and almost nobody retired that year, and it blew an $800,000 hole in the Nashua budget.
So they
that was only one part. There was another, altogether it was a $3.6 million shortfall for one of the reasons, but that was, you know, it was an unusual situation. Nobody predicted it. The change was made in the retirement system at the last moment, and the you know, projected changes of $800,000 or the savings of $800,000, which had been relatively consistent for years, just went away that year. And it was just a poor time for it to happen because there were several other things that happened consecutively.
So Dr. Cochran, what you're saying is they would put a credit in their budget of $800,000 anticipating that turnover. Okay. Yeah. So,
well, before we leave this, then so you've got some reductions here, Jeff. What would you say the total amount is for that? Because certainly you're not taking it all out in this table.
647 is the total on that, right? 647, 538.
No. I mean those lines. The assume. Those are reductions, right? But certainly you have a number larger than that you could associate with attrition. Yes.
Yes, and I won't say it's larger than that, but here's the problem with attrition. When someone leaves the district, and if they've been with the district for some period of time, they many times are entitled to redeem sick time or participate in a retirement incentive, whatever the case may be. I do not budget those retirement incentives. I did one year. It really was not a productive exercise because I said you really can't predict it. I can't predict who's going to retire next year and match that retirement. I know some people, but I don't know everyone. So, and typically that's in this year, right? So I'm going to be paying out people who are retiring this year in this year. So I don't budget for those retirement incentives to be paid out. That does come out of attrition. So overall, when we do make those payouts, we do end up realizing some cost savings from attrition, and that's where that gets applied to directly. So I wouldn't have that available necessarily.
And from my perspective, that would make perfect sense. That you may have some additional savings in that differential, but it's hard to plan for them.
Right.
In the same way that Nashua was trying to plan too closely for what they were anticipating.
Mm-hmm. And how do you deal with the ultimate reality? Again, this has just been something that has been contributing to surplus year after year after year. So I will say, though, that this does not involve any particular position getting eliminated. This simply assumes that we're going to have some open positions until they're filled during the year. So that's that. Any questions on this? I did put together a brief table just to give some perspective to the committee as to where we were, where these changes, where all of these cuts, impact the budget. And then I think we do have some additional discussions. Todd?
Well, I'll open it up if anybody has any questions on these lines in your table here. And then we can move to the next bit of low-hanging fruit. Go ahead, Phil.
It's an aside. It's not directly related to these line items. It's becoming abundantly clear, and it's probably really clear to folks on this call. Dr. Cochran, it's so great to have you on this call offering your input. It's very refreshing. We may disagree on like the value of certain line items, but it is so wonderful to have you on this call. It's nothing I've experienced on the budget committee to have this sort of accessibility. Jeff has been the one, not knocking Jeff, but to have that added voice in this meeting is incredibly valuable to help us put in perspective. I'm happy you're here. I'm sorry that you're here under these circumstances. Kudos.
I think this is it comes under the heading of it comes with the territory. Thank you, Phil. I'm hoping that I'm providing some value added and some context that will be helpful overall.
Oh, absolutely.
I appreciate your kind words.
It's encouraging. You're rolling up your sleeves and getting in where the sausage is made, Dr. Cochran. It's fantastic.
Well, I've been through this a few times before.
Can I ask a question about the Medicaid line?
Yes.
Dr. Cochran was a little uncomfortable with that. It's what, $15,000 there.
No, I got the opposite. I thought you were your story was encouraging that this made sense to reduce it by 15.
Oh, it does? Dr. Cochran, are you okay with 15,000?
We have, well, let me go back to my point. My point is we're posting for an interim position, which we want to put in the budget for next year, which is an assistant director of special education.
Okay.
And we have the need. At one point in time, we had 2 directors.
That's right.
And more support staff. And quite honestly, we're significantly underfunded and underpositioned in this, and I really don't know why. It may just be coincidence that our out of district placements are going up and our special education costs are going up, but we have added this year, or we're able to hire 3 new SPED administrators, 1 for secondary, 1 for middle school, and 1 for elementary. We believe we need to add this position. So there is some cost there. Now, over time, those positions should keep more kids in district.
Right.
Those positions should reduce costs. I don't think we can count on that for the immediate term, as in for next year. But for next year, I'm going to be requesting that position at an increase of about $140,000 for that one position. And we believe that we can recoup a significant chunk of that through Medicaid, as I pointed out. But I think that's SPED is an area that we have to invest more time, effort, energy in a lot of ways. We have case managers and teachers and folks working very, very hard with our student, and we just not have the level of administrative capacity to help with that regard. So this is something that we definitely have to address.
Thank you.
So, and Sue, on that, what that 15,000 is doing, our Medicaid reimbursement rates have been, I think they've gone down for everyone around really anywhere. And so I don't think that this had been looked at. And this service we pay is a percentage of the revenue that we receive. So we'd still be looking at 400,000 anyway. And if we're able to get more than 400,000 in Medicaid revenue, that's a great day. I'm happy. We'll find it in the budget if we run into that good fortune. So what my proposal is in removing 15,000 simply brings it down to not we really had some very good years for Medicaid reimbursement prior to last year, and it was really due to a lot of changes at the federal level. So let's hope that works out.
Yeah, like the last non-pandemic year, the actual spend for that was $4,943, and currently we have 55,000 budgeted there. So.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah. I anticipate we're going to do much better in getting reimbursements back, but it's not going to be to the level of 40,000. Even it may be a level of 40,000, not 55 we have now. So, any other questions? I'll move on a bit here.
One comment. The 3 lines that start with assume. Those aren't 4 new reductions. Those are just kind of balancing the books kind of things, right?
They're not for reduction. They're not reductions at all. They simply assume that is the cost savings that the district would realize due to the inevitability of having positions open because someone has left while we try and fill them. That assumes that I do not have a position, no position in particular, but a position based on the category filled 100% of the budget year.
Right.
It's not a cut, not a cut.
I just want to make sure that people watching this understand that.
Yep, not a cut. Thank you, Peter. Stephen?
Yeah, thank you. Would you be able to just dive a little deeper into the safety and security supplies cut?
Sure.
And what sort of that encompasses?
We have had a budget line in that, or an amount budgeted in that line for a number of years. And typically we don't know, because of the environment that we're in, and we become actually significantly less certain over time what our security needs are going, or what security options we may need as the year rolls in. And so for many years that had been in that line, and it was an amount that would be able to help if we needed to, for example, put in an exchange window at any of our schools with some bullet resistant glass, or any other security initiatives that we need to do. And so we did use the funding last year. We did use this funding last year as part of our match to state funding to install all of our new security cameras throughout the district. The security cameras have a cost associated with them. They're not on our own servers, so they do have a cost to have hosted and maintained. And so that is pretty close to $30,000, but that's in the technology budget. That's been added to the technology budget. So we'd still have about $10,000 in that line. That line was great to have last year. We didn't know we'd have some opportunities for some state funding. It's great to be able to take advantage of it. That would still leave about 10,000 in there. And if we did need to replace a security window at one of our schools, or do anything like that, install new cameras, a series of new cameras, we'd still have some funding in the line to be able to do that. But ultimately, what we've already installed, I can shift over. It's already budgeted. I don't want to double budget, if you will. So it's a real slick system that we've got. It's a very, very comprehensive package that helps with a ton of our security needs. So I'm comfortable moving that money over as a result of that.
Okay, thank you.
And Stephen, just to be clear, all of these lines that you're seeing in this table, none of them are zeroing out any of those functions, any of those line items. So in that particular line item, there's still $130,000 budgeted for that particular function, even after that 30,000 is removed from that line.
Thanks. That was actually going to be my follow-up question, so I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. So think of it that these are all just peeling a little bit away from, yeah.
Sure. Thank you.
So I'm going to move on. I did put together a brief summary here for the board, and Brian Boyle, thank you, because you had made mention of this. And I wanted to put together just a little perspective for the committee as to where we're at. And I'm using the two scenarios that we just went over, which was the school board recommended and the potential reductions that I've come in with. Looking at a voted budget last year of $73,304,644. The budget as proposed as it stands right now, which hasn't really moved much since 11/16, $76,212,070, which is an increase of really, I think Brian, you had mentioned 2 million, it's almost 3 million, or 3.97%. Most of those increases, by the way, are in fact driven by factors such as insurance, previously voted collective bargaining agreement increases, and increases in the New Hampshire retirement system. So
Jeff, real quick, I don't want to take you off track, but of that 2.9 million, can you be a little more specific as to just what the magnitude is of that 2.9 million for those things, the retirement, the teacher raises, the health? There we go.
Yep, here's a little bit better of a schedule of what those are. So you can see the salaries increase is just largely based on the collective bargaining agreements. Insurance increase at a 4.9%, we call GMR, guaranteed maximum rate. FICA increase on those associated wages, over $1 million in teacher and 223,000 in non-teacher retirement, a combination of both the rate increase and the wage increase based on the collective bargaining agreements. We do have some special education tuition increase, student transportation increase contractually obligated, curriculum initiative of about 90,000, and we do have some savings, a slight decrease of 4,590 or 4,590, as well as actually some savings from the SAU withdrawal of 255,409. So that's how those break out. When I say that they're largely, there are really no fun little, there's nothing like this budget committee has heard some great budget requests in the past there were none. What's your budget? What I need? That's,
We
a lot
really
of-
haven't had that. And I mean, in my time on the budget committee, we have not had that.
No,
Right.
those days are, I don't want to say long past, but we have not seen them in a while. So
Stephen, you joined us late this budget season, but every year the building leaders come, the principals and the department heads come and they present their budgets to us. And I mean, this is my third time doing this, and they're not asking for the world, that's for sure. They usually come in level, relatively level. I think the only one that showed a significant increase was technology, and I think we all know why that is, considering how our kids are conducting school these days. So sorry, Jeff, go on.
So again, looking at a general 3.97% increase before the budget committee takes any action. Of the 2.3 that was discussed by the school board, we're looking at 2 million in approved reductions or recommended reductions by the school board, which brings the budget down to $74,212,070, an increase of $907,427, which is a 1.24% increase. If we take simply and look exclusively at scenario 2, which is the scenario that we had presented, which was a reduction of $647,000. Looking at the impact on the budget, it would leave the budget at just a little over 75.5 million, still an increase of 2.2 million or 3.08%. Combining both of these, scenario 1 and scenario 2 together, it's a total savings of 2,647,000. Total budget of 73,564,000 for an increase of 259,000, almost 260,000, or 0.35% increase over current year budget. So I hope this provides some perspective. It's really going to be up to the committee as to what the committee adopts. Brian had raised it up as to what it looks like, and you know what? I didn't send anything out. It's a great question, so I tried to at least summarize and give you some perspective on what dollar amount changes would have on the budget wherever you end up in this process. So with that thought, am I okay to introduce the additional changes that we had spoken about?
Yes, please.
I'll put it up there. I don't know if you want to go through them, or did you want me to?
Sure. I thought I was going to be sharing it, but that's okay. Yours looked better.
No. I like yours better.
No. Go back. I like that. Okay. With all that considered that Jeff has done, and thank you, Jeff and Maria, for finding that 687 of potential reductions. I went through it again. I've already gone through this thing about 3 or 4 times, just looking for trends and trying to find where where we've underspent, right? Like the more we've underspent, I try to understand, and then I try to run it by Jeff and Maria. And by the way, any of you could do this at any time. You can always reach out to them and ask, and they'll go through it and give you some perspective. So I shot way higher than what you see under the function code ones there. But after speaking with them, I think I was shooting for the moon a little bit, but I was able to find a little bit in the professional improvement function, student activities, athletics, professional improvement again. Oh, right. That part of that was already, why do we have professional improvement in there twice? I guess we decided to do 20, didn't we?
So.
Yeah. Okay. And then the audit, again, all of these things have been, consistently underspent for, 5 years, 6 years, 7 years. And so we were able to find a little bit more. And then Maria was able to go back in to other professional services and supplies and carve out a little bit more. Again, just Stephen, just to the prior point, none of these lines are zeroed out. They're still, in some cases, there's still increases, from last year to the next year, to accommodate for rising costs and whatnot. But what we're trying to do here is try to grab some low hanging fruit to put together a little bit more. And we came up with an extra $252,000. So just adding that plus just the unfilled positions from the school board's recommendation the other night, and the 647 that Jeff just went through, we come out to about almost $1.6 million on its face. Now, our job now is to analyze these scenarios and figure out what we want to do and how we want to instruct Jeff as far as what we want to bring to the public. The public hearing is pretty much our next meeting, unless we could meet again if we need to. But especially with Zoom, it's very, very easy to schedule these things. But we want to bring a number to the public and present our budget. And so I didn't add this in here, and I'm not recommending it. I'm not on camera. I just realized that. I'm not recommending this, okay? But there is $1 million in capital in the budget right now, and that has not been touched. I didn't touch it last year. I didn't touch it the year before. I didn't touch it for this. But I just want to throw it out there that if we're making hard choices, okay, and we're doing things that are difficult, that nobody's really, a fan of any of it, like Phil said earlier, that I am all for capital projects and improving our buildings and improving our facilities. I fought for it hard last year, and I'm not saying I won't fight for it this year, but I just want to throw it out there that it is a line in the budget, the current proposed budget as it stands now, that makes up about $1.1 million for capital next year. And so could we take some of that and add it onto here to round this up to 2 million? We could do that. And my perspective, this is my personal perspective, is that I think a responsible budget that requires some trimming should have that trimming come across the board, across all the lines. And that's just my mentality. Maybe I'm wrong. But I'd like to at least throw this out for discussion and see what people say.
Well, speaking for me, Peter Belo, I think that's absolutely true.
Okay.
I remember way back when Earl Metzler was interviewing for the superintendent job, the the teachers union's president asked him what kind of facilities are required for a 21st century education. And he said, give me the appropriate staff and teachers, and we'll do it out of a cardboard box. And I really don't believe that has changed.
All right. Good point, Peter. Anyone else?
Todd?
Yes, sir.
Well, I'm not a fan of it. Again, I'm not a fan of any of it. We need to invest in staff, and we did last year with the contracts, and we all know we need to invest in facilities. But I think your approach of considering the tactic of spreading it out a little more than what was proposed the other night by the school board might be a smart choice. I'm not sure I'm wedded to a certain amount, but certainly I don't know how much longer I'll be serving on the budget committee, but certainly long-term investment in building facilities is a priority for me. And I would advocate for any member of the community for it to be a priority because it actually saves money. However, to be balancing the budget disproportionately in one area of the budget, I would be open to considerations to capital. Not excited about it at all.
Thank you, Phil. I'm trying to go for a fair and balanced approach here, right? Like across the board. So.
Well, it's not fun.
Bud?
Brian?
Okay. Well, in the meeting we had a couple of weeks ago, brief meeting I had, and Marie was on the call, and we came up with a list of projects because I think you've been hearing an awful lot about HVAC, and especially because of COVID. If you go down the road of taking your facilities down to $1 million, it's just not a road you want to go down. So it's $1 million. We've identified more like $1.5 million of stuff. Just that was kind of a goal, and I understand that there's going to be a. I understand what you're trying to do, which is fine, but I'm just letting you know right up front that you could be putting off those HVAC things real quick.
Okay. Well, that's why I didn't add it, Brian, right? I didn't add it. And I agree with you. Forget 1.5 million. We all know there's $40 million worth of projects out there that we can't do in 1 year, right?
Yep. And then in terms of staffing, obviously, whatever this group decides, I'll be bringing back to the school board, because obviously the budget committee doesn't get involved in that. You can sit back and say, oh, I'm leaving the money in it. That doesn't necessarily mean that function is going to be there.
That's true. But it's also true that this current school board isn't the school board that's going to be sitting and making those final decisions in March, right?
No, it is.
Three seats.
I think
Could be a totally different board.
Okay. I don't think so.
The voters still get a choice.
The voters get a choice, but I know there's 3 seats up. There's not 9 seats up.
True.
Okay. So I know how to count 8 to 1. So if I think I know where it's going.
Okay.
Well, I'm glad the votes have been counted before the public weighed in, but we have a job to do tonight.
You're trying to remove people, Phil, off a board that aren't up. That's what that's the point I'm trying to make. There are 3 seats up like there is every year. So unless there's a death or someone leaves, that remains, those 6 of those people will be there. That's all I'm saying.
Great. You've told us the votes have been counted before the public has spoke.
Okay.
May we continue, Todd?
Wow, you're unbelievable.
Yes. All right, you two. Come on. Anyone else want to add to the discussion? Thoughts, prayers?
Sue Sherman wants to speak.
I don't see her anymore. Hold on.
She was waving.
Oh, Mrs. Sherman.
So, all right. Jeff, if you go back to that final screen where you had Todd's stuff and everybody's added in, and you're at what, 1.5? 1.5 something. 1.583. Okay. And then in the school board proposed reductions, based on what Dr. Cochran said about high school teachers based on enrollment, you could add another 210, and maybe the administration at the high school. So you could add another 300,000 there. So now we're at 1.8. I'm trying not to I don't want to take too much out of capital either. I want to keep the capital and actually get something done there. Then we'd only be looking about another 250 someplace, and maybe we can shave a little in the capital of take a $200,000 cut out of capital, so we could come pretty close to 2 million if we could just cooperate a little bit there. So take out the teachers at 210, or add that into the cut, and add in the 100,000 for the administration. Leave the other positions, because that's all riffing actual positions. And then you get to 1.8 million cut or reduction. Are you with me at all? Anybody? So now, huh?
We're with you.
All right, 1.8, that's that. If we could just find another 250,000, we'd be closer to a $2 million reduction. And it not affect staff.
Do we have to be at 2 million, or is 1.8 sufficient?
Well, I thought Brian, does the board want to be above 2 million?
Again, so with the board made a vote, and that's, I don't want to speak for the board. It's just that when we made that vote the other night, it went from 2.307 to 2 million even. That's all. It's It's a number. I don't disagree with that part, but I know that we made a vote based on what was in front of us.
Right. And now we're charged with looking at all of these ideas,
Sure.
Jeff's ideas, a little bit out of capital. If we could work together here to get closer to 2 million and not have to take program away or current staff away.
Susan, if I may, you're very close to 1.9.
I'm sorry, Jeff.
No, so you're very close to 1.9.
Yeah.
Am I wrong? I thought the original request from the school board of Dr. Cochran was for 1.5 to 2 million.
It was.
He overperformed, if you will, and found other areas for wiggle room, as he said, for flexibility. So the notion that we're at where we are now does not seem wildly off to the request that the school board made of him originally.
Well, he's
That's a
from
good point,
Canada, so he does more than he needs to do. So he found over 2 million. Yay! But it affects staffing.
Todd?
Yes, Mr. Bilo.
Thank you. I'll make a motion to reduce 1.6 million total.
And do you want to, how do you want to reduce it?
The unfilled positions and the rest being out of capital.
Out of capital?
Yep.
Wait, the unfilled position, are you saying the unfilled positions, but not the table that Jeff did or the other?
Well, that's where I'm coming from.
Okay. Oh, I see. So you want the unfilled positions and then all of the whole capital budget.
Right.
Do we have a second on that?
That's aggressive.
That would be Peter.
Then make another motion, Bill.
If that's too punitive.
Okay, so I think that motion fails, Peter.
Okay.
Dr. Cochran, you had something to say?
I was just going to say that any significant reduction in capital is just going to create a bigger hole for next year, and the year after that. It is an area that I would avoid.
That's why you need a CIP.
It'll keep the staff out of the building too, is what you've been hearing for 6 months.
All right, do we have anyone else that wants to make another motion? Jeff, do you want to pull up, maybe share up the scenarios again so folks can have a look?
1 second here, pull it up. Don't have them up on the screen, but here we go. Now, what you're talking about, these two in the cost savings or the actual scenarios themselves?
Well, we could look at those. The last page is really lays out kind of what Peter was going towards, except not with the capital part. But your scenario 1, 2, 3, and then the spreadsheet in the end.
Okay, so that's the 647. This is the scenario 1 in the impact, right?
Mm-hmm.
Scenario 2 in the impact. 1 and 2 combined. And then the other spreadsheet that this one right here.
Mm-hmm.
So that took the vacant positions at 683. The business administrator's chart at 647. And then if we could add in the couple that I'm suggesting, so I'm making a motion, we add in.
Well, and also the 252 from the additionals that Maria and I identified.
Oh, so that's in the
the
1.5.
1.6.
Right. Yeah, so 1.6 is where we're at if we did this. Add in 210 and 100 from the board's chart. Now we're at what? 1.9, pretty close to 1.9 without touching capital at all.
Are you making that motion, Sue?
Yes,
I'll second.
Can you repeat that, Sue?
Sure.
Motion.
Okay, so here's the chart from the school board. The TRHS administrative FTE at 100,000. The TRHS teachers at 210, which Dr. Cochran explained would be enrollment based. So that adds up to 310,000. Add that into the proposed budget of almost 1.6 that
Last spreadsheet.
the last spreadsheet, which is a combination of the
Yep.
school board choices,
So we're at
our
1.9.
choices. Got it? Now we're at 1.9.
Yep.
Approximately. That's my motion.
And it was seconded.
I'll
So
second.
we're open for discussion right now. Phil?
The board originally asked for 1.5 to 2 in cuts. I haven't been convinced that that's the amount that needs to be cut. No one's comfortable with any of the cuts. I'm just going to leave it at that. I'm not sure whether I could support this, but I don't want to. If consensus is otherwise, so be it. I just feel like I don't want to give the impression that we're just trying to cut more, to say that we're more serious about cutting, because in the end, our jobs isn't just to cut here. It's to find a balance. And I'm not sold that 2 million is the right number or that 1 million is the right number yet.
Okay, thank you, Phil. Anyone else?
Yeah.
Brian?
Todd, so I just want to make sure I'm reading this right here. This is, so you just updated this, Jeff, for us, that you just did, or someone did?
Yeah, Jeff did.
And just for the record, I've never had a live spreadsheet in this format, so this is an exceptional night.
Okay,
Technology at its best.
okay, so we're close to 1.9 million here.
Yeah.
I like the number, I like the thought process. I personally, I support the number, but to tell you the truth, I'm hard pressed to vote against my board, so, but I like where this is going.
Okay.
Well,
thank
it's
you, Brian.
showing some compromise, Brian,
Well,
now, right? Which is
but
what I
see,
had
I never
suggested
looked-
2 weeks ago.
So I'll be honest with you, I never looked at this thing as a compromise, us against you. I'm looking at a number.
Well,
you know.
collaboration.
Okay,
Maybe collaboration is a better term.
okay. And I
I'm in
just,
favor of protecting program and positions that I think are necessary. But I understand we got to do something here. We can't go in with a $75 million budget.
no,
So what would this do to the number? What would this give us as a bottom line, Jeff?
I think it's going to be 74.3.
Give me just a moment. I'm off screen.
He's calculating.
Yes.
Anyone else for discussion while Jeff's working that up?
Todd, I have a question, and again, I apologize for this being my first meeting, and
Please
some of these
do not
questions.
apologize, Stephen. We're happy to have you, and you know what? You're drinking from the fire hose right now, my friend, and you're doing a great job.
You deserve an award for
Yeah.
stepping in and this being your first meeting, just so you know.
Yeah, it's a lot. So looking at the cuts that looks like the budget committee came up with, so I understand that that's not zeroing out these lines, but what is the overall impact to those particular lines, for the school? So taking some from athletics, taking some from, it looks like other programs, how will that truly impact the students, the staff, the faculty by taking some of those away from each particular line? Is it gonna be significant? Is it going to be, you know, I know we probably can't, you know, predict that, but is it something that is, you know, may not be noticed, or is it something that, you know, is truly noticed as a negative in the community?
Well, I'll let anybody else who wants to add an answer in, but I'll just answer from my perspective, Stephen. My hope is that we still have cash in the kitty in each of those lines at the end of the day, right? And that we're predicting, you know, using what we have, right? I mean, this is the game, so to speak. Like it's a long haul between now and when this money's actually going to get spent. Yeah. Of course, anything could happen, and you know, we want to mitigate as much risk as possible. I would ask Jeff to maybe address it from a surplus perspective, and then maybe Brian Boyle or Dr. Cochran can tell you what happens if a line runs out of money. That's not really how it works, right, Brian? Like,
correct.
This is operating money. So if a line runs out, it can come from another line. I don't know if that's where you were going, but Jeff, maybe you could just address what the surplus was last year and maybe the last couple of years, just so Stephen has some perspective there.
We've been running at a rather rich surplus. So we've had several million typically in surplus every year. So I think we're okay.
Yeah.
There. What was your more specific question?
I guess, you know, understanding that, you know, it's not cutting, you know, one particular line. It's sort of impacting a variety of different areas. And so, you know, although it's small chunks in a variety of different areas, you know, I guess my overall question is what is the overall impact to cutting in smaller areas, small pieces of the puzzle versus, you know, finding bigger chunks?
I think that the good thing is that we've spent a couple of years looking at the bigger chunks and really, you know, cutting those out, and that's why we're not finding bigger chunks now in the past.
Great. Nope, that's great.
And also, Stephen, we don't get to decide where the money goes, right? It really is a bottom line budget. Having these conversations help us contextualize where we want to.
It's a great way to put it, Phil.
But we don't get to choose. A really lazy way of budgeting, and government bodies do it all the time, is they just say 10% across the board or 3% across the board.
Sure.
And you don't actually have to think about how some needs in certain areas might be great, some might be fixed, some might be variable. It's just a very lazy, but here's the beautiful thing, the public understands it.
Yeah, all right.
So that's kind of what some are saying do here. Let's just cut it X amount of money. The public understands it. But to answer your question, which is a thoughtful one, what is the impact? We don't know. And in fact, we won't know 4 months from now. We won't know 7 months from now, in all likelihood. We're trying to spread it out in a way. We're trying to mitigate harm, quite frankly.
Sure.
That's our goal.
Great. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Jeff, could you forward me that, please? What you have on the screen right now, or forward that to the whole group?
Sure.
I think Julie had a question.
I do, if I could comment.
Yes, you can.
I know that everybody has developed this $2 million benchmark for, you know, as we've been going along, looking at different things. And I'm looking at it and I see that there have been some thoughtful cuts, you know, made by Jeff, and then they made additional ones that they seem to make sense. It's not like they're completely cutting everything out. So I think that those things definitely should be completely considered. Another thing that I really think we should think about and look at is that for the first time since I've been on this board, and I've been on for a number of years, we have an outside person. We have Mr. Cochran, who is new to the district. He's a new set of eyes looking at our entire organizational chart, employee. He has been in this business for a very long time, and he's been in a number of different situations and school districts, okay? And I feel like he's looking at places, and him and his team looked at places where there might be excess. And, you know, I'm not for cutting teachers, but if we have positions that have been not staffed and not even needed for years, why would we keep them on? But this, you know, and talking about taking something from a capital improvement line, I would never support anything like that. The facilities are falling apart. We are going to need a lot of money to keep those buildings running. The kids will be back in school again, and we will need to have them be able to be in those facilities. And we are going to be facing money to put in to those buildings. So I think that we really need to take a hard look at what he's recommended for cuts, and seriously consider taking that, and maybe our budget cuts and our recommendation should be even more than the 2 million. Because the way I'm looking at it is I'm getting around 2.7. We could even go over 3 million cut.
So you're in favor of taking both the school board chart and Jeff's chart and putting it all together to come up with
I am.
a 2.6? So you'd like all these positions? We're riffing all these staff. You're okay with that?
Those positions are not staffed.
Yes, they are. Les is staffed. The elementary and middle school specialist is staffed. The tech ed yes, those are staffed positions.
Julie, the only ones not staffed are the 11 in the top line.
And the top line, babe.
Only 1/3 are vacant positions. The rest are real people in buildings. And just to put this in context, I loved Dr. Cochran's explanation as to why he justified certain cuts over others. But to clarify, he was instructed not to look at capital. He was only told to look at staff.
Good.
So
programs.
I'm with you. Let's trust him. He's a fresh set of eyes. But he was given a menu and said only order off the appetizers.
Yeah.
Look at the entree, don't look at the dessert.
Right.
We might agree, but let's keep in mind the recommendation that he made was in the confines provided to him by the school board, which is much more limited than what we're looking at right now. We're looking at it much more holistically. We, in the end, may agree with where the school board fell, but what we're choosing to do is look at everything instead of looking at just certain things. That's all.
No, we're not looking at capital. In my proposal, we're not looking at capital. Those proposals by Jeff are in operations. Those are operating. Those are not capital lines. Correct, Jeff?
Correct.
Correct.
Yep.
So I'm agreeing with Julie. I don't want to touch the capital line either. And I don't think $1.5 million is probably enough. And Brian and I agree with there, but we got to start someplace. So
just to correct you, we don't, as far as I know, we don't have $1.5 million budgeted for next year for capital. It's only like 1.1, isn't it, Jeff?
Yeah, 1.1, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's over $1 million, and we've been trying to get over $1 million for a couple of years here.
Yeah.
So Julie, my motion is not suggesting that we touch capital at all, and that we not riff, I believe, positions that we should keep.
All right. Any other discussion before we call for a vote? All right. I think we should have the motion read back before we vote. Jaleese, would you be able to help us with that?
So the reduction is 1.36. Oh, no, increase.
No,
Gotcha.
no.
Gotcha.
Okay, so Sue makes a motion to have the total budget committee, total school board vacant positions, and total business administrator for a grand total of 183, 152 revised of reductions, which would have an increase of 1.36% over the prior year budget. Is that-
It's still higher.
No, I don't think, it's not a 3.6%, is it?
No, it's
I can't see that. I can't see that number.
1.36% increase, 1.36%
Yeah.
increase over last year's budgeted amount.
Yes. So the motion is to add the Sue's motion is to add the total budget committee, total school board vacant positions, recommended vacant positions, total business administrator, plus the high school administration position, plus the 3 high school positions, for a total of a $1,893,152 and $152 reduction, bringing the total to $74,318,918, and that would be a 1.36% increase over the last year's proposed budget, approved in March.
Right.
Is that clear to everybody what we're voting on now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Then Jaleese, if you will call for a vote, if there's no further discussion.
Christy Leclerc,
Oh, hold on. I'm sorry. I guess I do have a question. So
Okay.
that eliminates the $210,000. That does away that's included in the budget.
No, take it out.
You're taking it out. Okay, yes.
Peter Bealow,
Yes.
Brian Boyle,
No.
Stephen Finnegan,
Yes.
Julie Hammond,
No.
Michael Mascola,
Yes.
Todd McCormick,
Yes.
Sue Sherman,
Yes.
and Phil Sherwood.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. Jeff, I assume you will incorporate all those in there for our next meeting, whether that be the public hearing or if we find a reason to need to meet between now and then. I'll tell you what, let's move on to the next thing in the agenda and then we'll discuss that in new business. Okay, we're at new business. So confirmation of public hearing, remote only format. I did get an email earlier about that from Mrs. Belcher, and I have not had a chance to read it yet. But as far as I know, that is the way we want to go through forward. Yes, we agreed on that at the last one. What did you have in mind for that on the agenda, Jeff?
I did. I wanted to confirm that, and I've spoken with, so the format would be very similar to how we're operating here this evening. And I've spoken with both Ken and Dean, and it looks like we will have the same format for people to be able to raise their virtual hand during the public hearing, which of course requires public comment and input. So if there's no issue with that, I'm confirming that's okay to do, and have the committee confirm that that's the way they're going.
I mean, I think it went pretty well tonight. I mean, we had a pretty large crowd on here. Folks were given the opportunity to speak. It'll be a larger crowd for the public hearing for sure. Does anyone have any issues moving forward with this format or have anything to comment on it?
This is a great format. It works.
Okay, Thank you, Peter. All right. I wanted to add one thing into other business.
If I could, Todd, before you go there, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Sure.
The only thing would be that if we wanted to meet, if the budget committee wanted to have a meeting after the public hearing for any reason, we have a meeting after deliberative normally. If you wanted to have a meeting after public hearing, which I believe we would normally do.
So Jeff, I think you were copied on that email. It looks like we are going to meet directly afterwards on Zoom, and then Dr. Farah has offered for the school board to meet after our BudCom meets. For those of you that don't know, it's typically a very short meeting after the public hearing, whereby the school board, I think, has like their official full meeting. Don't you, Brian? Like right after public hearing?
I think traditionally, yes.
Yeah. So I think last year we met on the stage for 5 minutes to make a couple of changes. The budget committee did, and then Brian was able to go over to the school board meeting, and then it gives Brian the opportunity to be able to be at both meetings. So Brian gets to attend 3 meetings that night.
Lucky guy that he is.
He deserves a pay raise.
Yeah. All right. So there'll be more details to follow, but it'll be similar to this. What's that?
Well, I can think Steve's he's thinking of running for school board. It'd be a great idea.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
After tonight's meeting, go for it.
Oh, I think I need to take an Advil.
Yeah.
Just hoping he shows up again.
I'll be back, I promise.
So one thing I wanted to do, Julie is our BudCom representative for the superintendent search committee. But typically what we like to do is to nominate an alternate just in case Julie can't make those meetings. It's a pretty important committee. They're going to, have various meetings, and I think it'd be nice to have somebody that could fill in for her shoes if for whatever reason she can't make a meeting. So if anyone's interested, feel free to speak out. But I was inclined to see if you were interested, Mrs. Sherman.
Sure, I'm happy to help out. I mean, whatever Julie needs, whatever way she needs it. Sure.
Okay.
I didn't know
Great.
she was representing the budget committee. So that's good because she can speak the budget committee's point of view about the superintendent.
Yeah.
I thought she was representing Atkinson, but that's great. Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe you could make it a prerequisite, Julie, that the superintendent join all BudCom meetings, because I echo Phil's comments earlier that this is nice. It's nice. No offense, Jeff. No offense, Jeff.
We also don't want to scare away candidates, so let's not get.
Actually, I in both of my last 2 districts, I attended all budget committee meetings in the entire process all the way through annually. I think it's really important to be there, whether the people that you're working with agree with you all the time or not. I think you have to be open and honest and trying to explain what you're trying to do and how you're trying to do it, and hopefully it's information that's helpful to both the budget committee through the process and the school board as well.
It's been refreshing.
Great. Well, that's all I had, folks. So Sue, you're the official alternate.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Unless anybody else wants to jump in, and then we can have a vote about it. But
I'd like to make a comment, Todd, but no, I don't want to throw my hat in the ring.
okay.
In our last meeting, Julie, I made a comment about how I thought the consultant that was hired was pulling for one particular candidate. Out there in the ether, people have commented, believing that means that the consultants were pulling for our last superintendent. I just want to make it very clear that that's not the case. They were pulling for the prior assistant superintendent.
We disagree, but that's okay.
Okay. All right. That pretty much does other
Thank you.
business. As far as the future agenda and dates, right now, public hearing, January 14th. Is February 4th, is that the
That's
deliberative
deliberative,
session? I
isn't
mean,
it?
we don't control that, but isn't February 4th, is that a Thursday? think it is.
It is.
Oh, yeah, it is. Okay. Okay. Well, with no further ado, then I think we're going to adjourn. Thank you all for your diligent work and comments and participation. And I think that's a wrap for 2020. And we will next gather for the public hearing on our computers. So
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas and
Merry
happy
Christmas.
holidays and
Merry Christmas.
Happy New
Thank
Year
you
to
all.
everyone.
We'll see you on the
Stay safe.
14th.
Stay
Okay.
safe out there.